Hey guys, Mr. Gucci here with your last help video for the homework. Okay, I know all strung all together, this is a lot of help videos, but I broke it up into portions, so you only watch the portions that you need to watch to get the content. Okay, now how do you know which ones you're going to need help with? I am uploading an answer checker very shortly, in which you can check every single one of your answers from the homework to see if you got it right or wrong. And if you find that you're getting a whole bunch of answers wrong in one portion of the homework, well then watch the video to help you with that. Okay, that's how we're gonna have to structure it here. Okay, I know it's like an extra step than the other papers I've been giving you where you check the answer right in the document, but what can you do? I tried my best to get the fill in the blank format working. It just did not work. Okay, guys, so let me take you to the next assignment in your homework. The next assignment in your homework is to do some math problems and then round your answers to the correct number of significant figures. Now, the way you do this is straightforward for multiplication and division, okay? The rules are slightly different for addition and subtraction, but like 90% of the math we do in this class is multiplication and division. So I'm just going to focus on that, okay? Because we got to dump some stuff to get through, okay? So let's say you had this first problem right here. 986.72 divided by 5.12. What is the answer? Well, if you plug it into your calculator, 986.72 divided by 5.12, here's what the calculator spits out. It spits out 192.71875. Okay, so that is what the calculator spits out here. Okay, now listen. Okay, you have to round this answer. You have to round this answer because this answer right here is measured to like the millionth place, but none of your numbers were accurate to the millionth place going in. All right, so this number is way more precise than you can be sure of. So what we have to do is we have to round this, and we're going to round this to whichever number going in. That number of least significant figures. Let me show you what I mean. It's kind of hard to explain, okay? But here we go. So this number right here, 986.72, there are 5 significant figures in this value. 5.12, there are 3 significant figures in this value. Your answer has to round to whichever one of your inputs had the lowest number of sig figs. So in this case, we have to round our answer to 3 significant figures, which, as we did in the previous section, this means going left to right, we can keep the 1, we can keep the 9, we can keep the 2, and the rest is rounded away. Okay, this was a 7 that comes after, which means we got to round this guy up to a 3. Okay, but then the rest gets rounded away. The answer is 193. That's it. No more, no less. It's 193 because that's as certain as we can be here. We can't say what comes after that 3 because we don't know what came after the 2 over here. All right, we don't know what came after 5.12. I don't know. So 193, I don't know. That's as far as we can get. Let's look at another one. 98 times 0.006. Okay, now the calculator spits out 0.588, but we have to round this to whichever input had the lowest number of sig figs. This guy has 2 significant figures. This number, ignore the zeros at the start of a small number, this guy only has 1 significant figure. This number 2, 98 is 2 sig figs. 0.006 is 1 sig fig, so we're only allowed 1 sig fig. We have to round to 1 significant figure. So moving from left to right, we can keep the 5, and that's it. Everything else gets rounded away. Now what comes after the 5 is an 8, so we're going to have to round this up, okay? So this becomes a 6, and the rest gets rounded away. So the answer is 0.6. Again, we don't know what comes after this 0.6 here because we don't know what comes after this 0.006 here. You don't know any more significant figures there, so you can't tell me any more significant figures here. That's as accurate as we can be. Okay, let's take a look at number 43. Okay, now in my calculator, once again, I just do the math in my calculator. 45.20 times 0.0071. The answer, according to the calculator, is 0.32092. That's what the calculator spits out. But we have to round it. All right? And so we look at the numbers we started with. Whichever of our starting numbers had the fewest sig figs, that's what we had to round to. So 45.20, we got a decimal point in the middle. So everything counts. This is 4 sig figs. Okay? This is not 3, this is 4. That 0 in the end here counts because the only reason they would write 45.2 and then a 0 is if they measured that 0. If it didn't count, they wouldn't write it. It would just be 45.2. So 4 sig figs there. This number, on the other hand, let's see here, small number. We don't count the zeros in front. So this thing only has 2 significant figures. So our answer has to be rounded to 2 significant figures. Moving left to right, we can keep the 3. We can keep the 2, and everything else has to get rounded away. Now, the thing that comes after the 2 is a 0, so we don't need to worry about rounding up or anything like that. The answer is just 0.32. That's it. We don't know what comes after that 2, because over here, we don't know what comes after this 1 over here, okay? We don't know what comes after it, all right? 1 second. Okay, my wife's working over there. Okay, so on to the next one. 497.7. 497.7 divided by 3.0. The calculator spits out 165. Let me write this more neatly. 165.9. But again, we have to round this to whichever input had the fewest significant figures. This guy right here had 1, 2, 3, 4 significant figures. This one right here had 2 significant figures. Remember, if the decimal point is in the middle of the number, everything counts as a significant figure. So we have to round to 2 significant figures. Whichever number we started with had the fewest sig figs, that's what we have to round to. That's just the way it goes. So here we go. Starting from left to right, we can keep the 1. We can keep the 6. And everything else gets rounded away. Now, what comes after the 6 is a 5, so this guy gets rounded up. All right? So this is 170. 170. Not 17, all right? In no universe does 165.9 round to 17. You still need to keep the approximate value. The 1 stays in the hundreds place. The 7 stays in the 10 place, okay? So you got to make sure that you do that. That's just a common error. Last one. It doesn't matter how big or how complicated the multiplication division problem is, all right? This one has 3 values. 400.20, 400.20 times 3.010 divided by 3.43. The calculator spits out 351.195918.4. And I presume that's as many digits as my calculator has. I presume it continues going. I presume it just keeps going, okay? But we have to round this number. And again, this number could keep going for like 1,000,000 decimals, but we don't know what's out there really, because these numbers plugged in, we only knew them to a certain amount. And so our answer, we can only know to that same amount. So again, we look at the numbers that we started with. Whichever has the fewest significant figures, that's what our answer has to be rounded to. So 400.20, there's a decimal point in the middle of it, so everything counts. 5 significant figures. This next number, once again, a decimal point in the middle of it, so everything counts. 4 significant figures. This last one here, a decimal point in the middle, so everything is significant. 3 significant figures. The worst number going in is this. It's rounded to 3 significant figures. So it doesn't matter that this was 5 and this was 4. We have to round based on the worst, most rounded number with the least significant figures going in. The most rounded number had 3 significant figures, so our answer has to have 3 significant figures. So moving from left to right, we can keep the 3. We can keep the 5. We can keep the 1, and that's it. The thing that comes after the 1 is another 1, so we don't have to round up. The answer here is 351. We don't know what comes after that 1. We don't. Or even if it is a 1, maybe it's a 0, and the thing that comes after was like a 5, and it rounded up. But we don't know. We got to stop there because we don't know what comes after this 3.43. 3.43 what? We don't know. 3 significant figures going in, 3 significant figures coming out. So that's how you do these problems. You just plug, so for multiplication and division, all right, you just plug your numbers into the calculator, write down your answer, and then you have to round it. Look at the numbers you started with in multiplication and division problems, all right? Whichever one had the fewest significant figures, that's what you have to round your answer to. All right, guys? Thank you. I hope this helped.